Hello, crafting friends. I'm Doreen DeCebus from It Begins with Ink and Paper, and welcome to Simply Stamping Sunday. So happy you're able to join me tonight, whether you're watching the live, the replay, or on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for your support, and we are ready to go. All right. So let's see. Let me just get my mat centered a little bit and we'll get started. So it is week number 3 for the Beautiful Butterflies stamp set, and this is a great stamp set to do some simply stamping with. It does have a lot of other things that go with it, but we are only concentrating on the butterflies themselves for our Simply Stamping Sunday. Hi, Roz. So let's get started. Let me just review some of the things. Oh, I think I just sent some of them out. So I was just sending some cards out, and I think I sent out some of our Simply Stamping Sunday. So I have 2 left from the first week, and it looks like I have 2 left from last week. I've just started sending them out. Sorry about that. But we created these 2 cards when we were using just the designer series paper, and the blue hello card is missing. And then last week we were stamping on paper again, and we were using some ink from our ink pad to make some beautiful cards as well. So that is what we have been up to. Tonight, we're just going to stamp some great cards. That's my whole intention. So let's get started. Let me just move this out of the way. I just knocked something over. Sorry about that. So we're going to be making 3 cards tonight. I'm going to pull this down because I'm going to need it. This is my paper piercing mat, and I've just taped some plain white paper on it so that when I stamp on it, I'm not getting the ink on it. Our first card we're going to make tonight, this is the only one I think that we're using. No, we're going to use designer series paper on one other. We're going to use some of the designer series paper, some fresh Freesia, and we're going to be stamping in fresh Freesia as well. Tonight, I usually start with the easier cards and work my way up to the harder cards or the more steps for cards. Tonight I am going to be going based on ink color because I'm going to be using some of the same stamps and I don't want to mix or contaminate my ink pads. So what do I have here? I have a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 piece of fresh Freesia cardstock. I also have a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 4 by 5.25. Remember, I am going to post all of these, so you don't need to be writing them down. I have a piece of designer series paper that measures 4 by 5.25. I have a piece of basic white cardstock that measures 3 by 4. This piece of fresh Freesia measures 3.25 by 4.25. And then I have, let me just see how wide it's 5/8. Nope, it's 3/4. I have a piece of designer series paper that is 3/4 of an inch wide by 4 inches. And this is the card we're going to be making. So it's just a really nice soft card. So I'm going to get out my, going to start by folding my card base. We got that set. I'm going to set it aside. And we're just going to, on this piece of basic white cardstock, I'm just going to be adding this piece of designer series paper. And I really tried to use my Stamp and Seal up yesterday so I wouldn't have to fill it tonight, but I didn't have much luck with that. So I know in a minute we're going to have to fill that. Okay, so that is all set, and it's going to go inside the card. So I like to either stamp inside my card, or I like to add something, a piece of designer series paper, just something, either the stamp or the the stamp or the designer series paper is going to tie the inside to the outside. And that's what I like to do. Okay, there we go there. All right, so then we're going to just add this piece of designer series paper. It's from the Blooms Impression, and it was free during celebration. I absolutely love it and have enough packages to do lots of things with it. So hopefully you'll be able to take some of the classes I'm going to be offering with it. So this is all set. So now I'm going to take my piece of basic white cardstock and I'm going to be stamping twice on it. So I'm going to start with my Fresh Freesia ink, and I'm going to start with the greeting first because I want the greeting on so that I can know where to put my butterfly. So I'm going to line this up towards the bottom. The paper is just wide enough for this stamp. And in case you can't see it, that's what it looks like. It's just such a pretty font, I just love the sentiment, time to celebrate. It could be you can use celebrate for just about anything. Then I'm going to take my large butterfly stamp and I am going to ink this up. It's actually easier to turn it over and ink it up this way. You can see it, you can make sure you're getting ink everywhere. Now this is the stamp that if I'm not, I really want to make sure I'm using my paper piercing pad so that I can make sure I'm going to get on the paper, get the ink on as best as I can. So I'm going to use a little bit of pressure here because I really want to get all the image down. And we did a pretty good job. There we go. That's what the stamp looks like. The stamp image is not large enough for, the piece of paper is not large enough for the whole image to get on the paper. So now I'm going to attach this to the piece of Fresh Freesia cardstock, and we're going to use some dimensionals to get this onto the front of our card. So I just want to make sure I'm putting this on evenly, and I'm going to grab some dimensionals. Hi Bonnie, thanks for joining tonight. There we go. So we'll just turn this over and we're going to add a few dimensionals to the back. There we go. We'll just get these off and we'll put them on the front of the card, and our first card will be done. And there we go. We have card number 1. Okay, I'm going to put that aside and we're going to take out our second card. I'm just going to be trying to do some different colors with us tonight. So my next card is going to feature Misty Moonlight. And here is the card that we're going to be making. It's just a nice, bold card using those larger stamps. And I ended up cutting one of the smaller stamps out. So the grading I'm going to be using, let's move those dimensional backings. In case you need me, I'm here. I'm stamping that in Night of Navy, so it's just a bit darker than the Misty Moonlight, and then this is going to be stamped in my Misty Moonlight. So I have a piece of basic white thick cardstock that measures 5.5 by 8.5, and I just folded that in half. And then I have a piece of, I believe it's regular size, 4 by 5.25 piece of basic white. And then I just have a scrap to stamp the other butterfly on. So first thing I'm going to do as I set that aside is I'm going to just clean off my big stamp that I used so that I can stamp it into the Misty Moonlight ink pad. It probably wouldn't necessarily contaminate my Misty Moonlight pad because it's such a darker ink, but I still like to clean them. So I'm going to just set that aside and grab first my Misty Moonlight, and I'm going to grab my stamp, my paper piercing mat. So I'm going to be putting this, I'm going to actually put it a little diagonal because I want to stamp those butterflies coming in from the top and the bottom. So I'm going to grab my stamp and ink it up so it is nice and blue. And I am going to place this right down on the paper. Give it a nice bit of pressure. And there we go with the first image. I'm going to turn this upside down. I'm actually going to go over a little bit when I, just to not have it perfectly aligned. So I'm going to ink this up again, just doing a nice patting, making sure all areas of the stamp are inking nicely. And I'm going to tilt this a bit and then give it a nice bit of pressure to make sure the ink is transferring equally. And there we go. Looks great. Let me just set that one aside. I am going to take my smaller butterfly, ink it up, and there's room on here for me to stamp 2. I'm only going to need 1, but I'll have these for another card, the other one for another card. Set that aside, and then of course through the magic of television I've already cut this one out, so I'm going to put that right here. We're done with, we're not quite done with the Misty Moonlight, because as I said, I like to either stamp in my card or I like to put designer series paper. We're not using any designer series paper for this card, so I am just going to stamp a butterfly inside the card. Make sure that it's all inked up. And there we go. So there's on the inside of the card, the stamped image. I'll set that aside. Now we're done with our Misty Moonlight ink. And I'm going to bring out my Night of Navy ink and bring this out again. And I am going to stamp our greeting in the Night of Navy ink. You are probably not going to see much of a difference in color. If you're looking at the card straight on, you would see that that ink is a little darker, but it's not all that much darker. Okay, now we're ready to put this together. So I'm going to start by, let's get this all moved out of the way. I'm going to be using dimensionals on both of these. So let's start with giving the butterfly some dimension. So I don't want this butterfly to be squished. So I am putting 5 dimensionals on it. I probably could have gotten away with fewer, but I just, when you hope that a card is going to arrive exactly as you expect it to when you put it in the envelope. But we all know that that doesn't always happen. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to add this little guy right on the front. It'll give us a little bit of dimension. And as probably most of you know, we like to do things in groups of 3 when we're crafting. So this will give us 3 butterflies. There we go. So that's what the front's going to look like. We'll bring our card down. I'm just going to give it another crease to really lay it down flat. And we'll take these dimensionals off. I'm on, as some of you know, I'm on the State Board for Excellence in Education. And this week we are going to start doing our school visitations. I'm on the middle school selection committee. So we are going to start visiting middle schools across the state to make our selection. And it's just going to be a crazy week because we're going to be visiting several schools, and I hate writing lesson plans for a sub, and I spent most of the morning this morning writing Tuesday's plans, but I've got more for the rest of the week I've got to do. So here is our second card. I just love it. It's just beautiful. Nice and bold, uses very few supplies, but no matter what greeting you put in, it's going to get the message across. Okay, so one more time at cleaning our stamps for the next card. I'm just cleaning this one now. We're actually not going to be using this large one, but it does help if I clean as I go. We are going to be using this one. Okay, so now I think everything is cleaned. All right, so our last card, we are just going to be doing, we're going to just be putting the butterflies in the background using basic black ink. So I'm using Lost Lagoon cardstock. So I have a piece here that measures 5.5 by 8.5. And we are going to need, for the inside of our card, a piece of 4 by 5.25 cardstock. And you can see we're just going to be adding some designer series paper. This paper is it's in the scrapbooking section flyer. It's called Everyday Happiness, and it just has all of these beautiful Lost Lagoon, pretty peacock, and wild wheat in it, and it just is a beautiful design. So this is one side of the designer series paper, and I'm using the other side that has some of the wild wheat and the Lost Lagoon in it. And this piece measures 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Okay, let's set that aside. I also have a 1/2 inch strip that we're going to put onto the inside of the card. So we can do that right now. I always make mine just a tad longer, and then I can decide, because I want to make sure I get both colors on this. So I'm going to put it in such a way that that happens, and then I can just take my paper snips and cut this off. So there we go. We have the inside all set. So before I show you what else we're going to be using, let me just take this piece and we're going to fold it in half, and we'll put that inside piece in. All right. Doing pretty well with this tape so far. I really thought I would be long gone by now. So this will go into the inside of the card, plenty of room to write our greeting. And then we're going to do some stamping before we do anything else. So I am going to start. So this piece here, as I think I told you, it's 3 3¾ by 5 inches. I have a piece of black cardstock that I'm going to mount this on, and this is just 1/8 of an inch wider, so it's 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. Then I have just 2 paper scraps. This one's 1/2 inch, and this one is 3/8 of an inch. So I just have 2 paper scraps of the basic white and basic black, and then I just took a scrap of the designer series paper so I could stamp a butterfly. Okay, so let's get our mat over here again. Move it so everyone will be able to see. And all we're going to do with Memento Black is stamp some butterflies. And we're just going to just move that out of the way so I can make sure everyone can see. I'm just going to ink this up with our black ink. And I am just going to start having those butterflies just go everywhere. And I want a lot of butterflies. I want this to totally be a huge background. And the butterflies are going to be whatever colors the background paper is. So some are going to be all Lost Lagoon. Some are going to be all wild wheat. And some are going to be a little bit of both, which just makes it really, really nice. So I'm just, like I said, stamping a pretty close background. I just want as many butterflies as I can fit on this. And I think we achieved that. So we have this beautiful background. Now what I'm going to do is take that little piece of paper and I'm going to stamp another butterfly right on that. So it can be cut out and used on the card. Okay, I'm going to set that up there, and here's our butterfly all cut out. Now the last thing that I need to do is stamp our greetings. So I'm going to use 2 greetings from the Beautiful Butterfly set. One is So Thankful. So I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to stamp this over towards the left. And then I have another stamp from the set that says For You, and I'm going to stamp it right beside it. And we can see pretty well how to line this up. So it's okay. So that's what the greeting looks like. So let's get this out of the way. We'll take our piece of paper. I am going to put this down towards the bottom, and it's going to be all the way over. Like I said, I usually have these be a little bit longer than what I need. So I'm going to have this go right across here. Make sure it is straight. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to cut this off, just trim it. And this is going to go onto the piece of basic black cardstock. There we go. And I am not using dimensionals on this one. I'm just going to use some more of the Stamp and Seal. This is going to, oops, I'm not going to put it on yet. I am going to attach this so I can cut it off. So I'm just going to layer this right onto my piece of black cardstock and trim it off. There we go. And now this will go on to the front of the card. And I am going to put dimensionals on the butterfly. So let me just do that. And our third card is almost done. So tonight's focus was sort of like we're going to make really pretty, easy cards. I put those closer together, so I think this one is going to be okay without the fifth one. And then we're just going to align this. I want the butterfly to stay on the card, but dip down a little bit. And that is our last card of the evening. And I don't know which one's my favorite one, but I really like this one. So it's up in the running for favorite. So let's take a look at what we made tonight. So our first card was made with fresh Freesia. Time to Celebrate. Our second card was made with Misty Moodline and just made a really bold and bright card. And then our last one, we did our stamping in black onto a solid or an ombre kind of effect background on designer series paper, and then put it on a piece of Lost Lagoon cardstock. And those are our three cards for tonight. So thank you so much for joining me, or live, or watching the replay, or on my YouTube channel. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a fantastic week. I will be back Friday night for another edition of Fun Fold Friday. Good night, everyone.